The scarred wooden table that held Willow Garcia's handmade jewelry had seen better days, but she loved it anyway because it reminded her of her grandfather's workshop back in Colorado. She had woken up at 5 that morning to set up her stall at the downtown market, arranging her wire-wrapped pendants and hand-stamped silver rings in neat rows, the early autumn sun just beginning to warm the air. The market buzzed with weekend shoppers by 9, and Willow was already deep in conversation with a customer when she first saw him. He stood a head taller than most people in the crowd, wearing dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was slightly tousled, like he had been running his hands through it, and his jaw was strong and defined. But what struck her most were his eyes, a deep brown that seemed to hold 1,000 thoughts behind them. He stopped at her stall, hands in his pockets, and looked at her jewelry with an intensity that made her pause mid-sentence. The customer she had been helping moved on without buying anything, and Willow turned to the tall stranger. "Can I help you find something?" He glanced up at her, and for a moment their eyes met. She felt something shift in her chest, a flutter she quickly dismissed as nerves. "Just looking," he said, his voice low and quiet. "Sure, take your time." She smiled, trying to appear friendly and professional despite the odd sensation his presence created. He picked up a silver bracelet with tiny stamped stars, turning it over in his hands. His fingers were long and elegant, but there were calluses on his palms that surprised her. He studied the piece for several minutes while Willow helped another customer, and she found herself stealing glances at him. When she finished ringing up a pair of earrings, she turned back to find him placing the bracelet exactly where it had been. "Not what you are looking for?" she asked. "It is beautiful," he said simply. Then he nodded once and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Willow stood there feeling oddly unsettled. She had dealt with hundreds of customers who browsed without buying, but something about him felt different. She shook her head and returned to her work, helping customers and wrapping purchases in recycled paper tied with twine. The following weekend, the market was busier than usual. Willow had brought new pieces, including a collection of copper rings with intricate floral patterns she had spent all week perfecting. She was adjusting her display when she sensed someone standing at the edge of her stall. She looked up and felt her breath catch. It was him again. He wore different clothes this time, a navy button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms that suggested he did more than sit behind a desk all day. His expression was unreadable as he studied her new pieces. "Welcome back," Willow said, keeping her voice light. "See anything you like?" He picked up one of the copper rings, holding it up to the light. The autumn sun caught the metal, making it glow warm and golden. "You made these?" "Every piece here," she confirmed, feeling a strange pride at his question. "I have been working with metal since I was 16. My grandfather was a metalsmith." He nodded slowly, still examining the ring. "The detail is impressive. Thank you." She waited for him to say more, but he simply placed the ring back and picked up a pendant instead, a wire-wrapped moonstone that had taken her 3 hours to complete. He held it for a long time, running his thumb over the wire work. "That one is special," Willow ventured. "Moonstone is supposed to bring balance and calm." His lips quirked slightly, not quite a smile but close. "You believe that?" "I believe that wearing something beautiful can change how you feel about your day," she said honestly. "Whether that is magic or just psychology, I do not know." This time he did smile, just a little, and it transformed his entire face. He looked younger, less burdened. "Fair enough." He set the pendant down carefully and again walked away without buying anything. Willow watched him go, her curiosity growing. Who was this man who showed up at her stall, handled her jewelry with such care, but never purchased anything? She realized she did not even know his name. The third weekend he appeared, Willow was ready for him. Well, as ready as she could be. She had told herself all week not to think about the mysterious stranger with the sad eyes, but she had failed miserably. She had even made sure to wear her favorite green sweater and had braided her long brown hair over her shoulder instead of tying it in her usual messy bun. When he arrived at her stall around 10:30, she was helping an elderly woman choose a necklace for her granddaughter. He waited patiently at the side, not interrupting, just watching with those intense eyes. Willow found her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped the necklace, and she scolded herself for acting like a teenager. After the woman left, Willow turned to him. "You know, most people who visit a stall 3 times end up buying something." "Most people are not me," he said, and there was no arrogance in his voice, just a statement of fact. "I am starting to see that." She leaned against her table, studying him openly. "I am Willow." He hesitated, and she saw something flash across his face. Uncertainty, worry, then it was gone. "Thomas. Nice to officially meet you, Thomas." She gestured to her display. "So what brings you back if you are not interested in buying?" "I did not say I was not interested." He picked up a silver cuff bracelet with geometric patterns. "I like your work. But not enough to take any of it home. I am still deciding." Willow laughed, the sound escaping before she could stop it. "You are the most careful shopper I have ever met. Do you take this long to buy everything?" "Only things that matter," he said quietly, and the way he looked at her when he said it made her heart skip. They stood there for a moment, the market noise fading into background static. Willow felt like she should say something, but her mind had gone blank. Finally, Thomas set down the bracelet and gave her that almost smile again. "I will see you next week, Willow. You know where to find me," she managed, and then he was gone again. Her best friend Natalie stopped by the stall an hour later with coffee and immediately noticed something was different. "Why do you look like that?" "Like what?" Willow accepted the coffee gratefully. "Like you just got kissed, but you are confused about it." "That is a very specific observation." "Willow, spill." So Willow told her about Thomas, about his 3 visits and his quiet intensity and the way he never bought anything but always returned. Natalie listened with growing interest, her eyes getting wider. "Girl, he is clearly into you," Natalie declared. "He has barely said 10 words to me total. Some men are like that, strong, silent type. Very hot, by the way. You said he is tall, very handsome, ridiculously." "Then what is the problem?" Willow sighed, watching the crowd move through the market. "I do not know anything about him." "He could be anyone. He could be married." "Was he wearing a ring?" "No, but that does not always mean something." Natalie sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Next week, ask him out for coffee, just casual, see what happens." "I cannot do that." "Why not?" "Willow, you have not been on a date in over a year. You spend all your time making jewelry and avoiding any possibility of human connection." "That is not true," Willow protested weakly. "Name the last time you went out with someone." Willow opened her mouth, then closed it. Natalie was right, but that did not make it easier. After her last relationship had ended badly, with her ex accusing her of caring more about her craft than about him, Willow had thrown herself into her work. The jewelry stall at the market was just the visible part. She also sold online and took custom commissions. It kept her busy and gave her purpose, and she had convinced herself that was enough. But now there was Thomas, quiet and mysterious, and she could not stop thinking about him. The 4th weekend arrived with unexpected rain. Willow almost stayed home, knowing the market crowd would be thin, but something made her load up her car and drive downtown anyway. She set up her tent and arranged her jewelry, wiping away raindrops that snuck through the canopy. By noon, she had made exactly 2 sales and was seriously considering packing up early when Thomas appeared. He was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, his jacket dark with rain. But he came straight to her stall like he always did. "You are going to catch a cold," Willow said, grabbing a towel she kept for emergencies and offering it to him. He took it with a nod of thanks and dried his face and hair. "I did not want to miss you." Something in her chest tightened. "You came out in this storm just to visit my stall." "Yes." The simple honesty of it took her breath away. She watched him set down the towel and immediately reach for her jewelry, this time picking up a pair of earrings shaped like tiny feathers. His large hands made the delicate pieces look even smaller. "My sister would love these," he said quietly. "You have a sister, too, actually. Sarah and Margaret. Sarah just got engaged and Margaret is in medical school." It was the most personal information he had shared, and Willow felt like she had been given a gift. "Sounds like they keep you busy." "They try." That almost smile appeared again. "Mostly they tell me I work too much. Do you?" "Probably." He looked at her directly. "I run a real estate development company. My father started it. I took over 5 years ago when he retired." Willow felt her eyes widen. She had suspected Thomas had money based on his clothes and the way he carried himself, but a development company meant serious wealth. "That must be a lot of responsibility." "It is." He set down the earrings and picked up a necklace instead, a delicate chain with a small compass pendant. "Some days I miss when life was simpler." "When was that?" "College. I studied architecture, spent my days designing buildings I knew would never be built, arguing with my roommate about the best pizza toppings, falling asleep in the library." His voice held a note of nostalgia that made him seem more human, less like the intimidating figure who had first approached her stall. Before everything got complicated. Rain drummed harder on the tent, and Willow realized they were essentially alone. Most vendors had packed up and the few customers had fled for cover. She should probably close up too, but she did not want Thomas to leave. "What changed?" she asked softly. "My father had a heart attack. He survived, but the doctors said he needed to reduce stress. He asked me to take over the company." Thomas set down the necklace and met her eyes. "I was 26 and had no idea what I was doing. I had been working for a small architectural firm, designing community centers and libraries. Suddenly, I was in charge of $1 million projects and 100 employees. That sounds terrifying." It was. He leaned against the table, and for the first time he looked relaxed. "But I figured it out. Hired good people, learned to delegate, worked 90-hour weeks for the first 2 years. Now the company is doing better than ever." "At what cost?" Willow asked before she could stop herself. He looked at her sharply, and she worried she had overstepped. But then his expression softened. "You are very perceptive. It is just obvious that you carry a lot on your shoulders. I can see it in the way you stand, the way you look at things like you are trying to solve a problem." "I do not have many people in my life who notice things like that," Thomas said quietly. "Most people just see the success." "I see a man who comes to a jewelry stall every weekend and never buys anything," Willow said with a small smile. "Which means you are here for a different reason." The air between them felt charged, heavy with something unspoken. Thomas took a step closer, and Willow's heart hammered in her chest. He was going to say something important, she could feel it. But then his phone rang, loud and jarring in the quiet tent. He pulled it from his pocket and glanced at the screen, and she saw frustration flash across his face. "I have to take this. Work emergency." "Of course." He answered the call, stepping away slightly. Willow busied herself with rearranging pieces that did not need rearranging, trying not to eavesdrop but catching fragments anyway. Something about a contractor and a deadline and city permits. Thomas's voice was different on the phone, more authoritative and clipped. This was the CEO, the man in charge of a successful company. When he hung up, he looked genuinely regretful. "I have to go. There is a situation at one of our sites. It is okay, I should pack up anyway." He hesitated, then reached for his wallet. He pulled out several bills and set them on the table. "For the feather earrings and the compass necklace." Willow wanted to argue, to tell him he did not need to buy anything, but she could see he wanted this. She wrapped the pieces carefully while he watched, and when she handed him the package, their fingers brushed. The touch sent electricity up her arm. "Thank you," Thomas said. "Same time next week. I will be here." He held her gaze for a long moment, and Willow thought she saw longing in his eyes. Then he turned and walked back into the rain, leaving her standing in her tent with her heart racing and her mind spinning. Natalie called that evening demanding details, and Willow told her everything while curled up on her couch with hot tea. "He runs a real estate development company, Nat. He is probably worth millions. So what would someone like that want with someone like me? I sell jewelry at a weekend market. I live in a tiny apartment. My car is 15 years old. Willow Garcia, I am going to reach through this phone and smack you," Natalie said firmly. "You are an incredibly talented artist with a thriving business. You are kind and funny and beautiful. Any man would be lucky to have you, millionaire or not. But no buts. If he keeps coming back, it is because he wants to. Rich people do not waste time on things they do not care about." Willow wanted to believe her, but doubt crept in anyway. She spent the next week distracted, messing up 2 custom orders and having to remake them. She caught herself daydreaming about Thomas at odd moments, remembering the way he had looked at her in the rain, the vulnerability in his voice when he talked about his past. When Saturday arrived, she woke up early despite barely sleeping. She chose her outfit carefully, a soft blue sweater and jeans, and left her hair down. The morning was clear and cool, perfect market weather. She set up her stall with extra care, arranging her newest pieces prominently. Thomas arrived at 10, exactly when he usually did. But this time he was not alone. A woman walked beside him, tall and elegant in designer clothes, her blonde hair perfectly styled. Willow felt her stomach drop. They stopped at her stall together, and the woman immediately began examining the jewelry with an expert eye. "Thomas, these are lovely. Much better than that boutique Sarah dragged us to last week." "I told you," Thomas said, and Willow realized this must be Margaret, one of his sisters. Relief flooded through her, so intense she almost laughed. Not a girlfriend, his sister. Margaret looked up at her with a warm smile. "You must be Willow. Thomas has mentioned your work." "He has." Willow glanced at Thomas, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Multiple times," Margaret confirmed. "Usually while telling me I do not need to buy him anything for his birthday, but if I insist, perhaps some nice handmade jewelry would be acceptable." "Margaret," Thomas said, his voice holding a warning. "What? I am just being honest." Margaret turned back to Willow, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "My brother does not usually show interest in much outside of work, so when he started talking about a talented jeweler at the market, naturally I had to come see for myself." Willow felt herself blushing. "Well, I am happy you are here. Let me know if you see anything you like." Margaret spent 20 minutes browsing, asking intelligent questions about techniques and materials. She eventually chose 3 pieces, including a delicate ring that Willow had made using gold wire she had been saving for something special. While Willow wrapped the purchases, Thomas stood quietly nearby, watching her hands work. "You make it look easy," he said. "Lots of practice." "I messed up plenty in the beginning. My grandfather used to say that every mistake teaches you something, so make them count." Sounds like a wise man. He was. Willow tied the final bow on Margaret's package. He passed away 2 years ago. Left me all his tools and told me to make something beautiful with my life. I think you are doing exactly that, Thomas said softly. Their eyes met, and Willow felt that connection again, stronger than before. Margaret cleared her throat delicately, breaking the moment. Well, I should get going. I have studying to do. She accepted her package and shook Willow's hand. It was wonderful to meet you. I can see why my brother keeps coming back. She walked away with a knowing smile, leaving Thomas and Willow alone. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking uncharacteristically unsure. Sorry about her. She means well, but subtlety is not her strong suit. I like her, Willow said honestly. She seems genuine. She is. Thomas picked up a bracelet, one of Willow's simpler designs in twisted silver. Can I ask you something? Sure. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Away from the market, I mean, just to talk. Willow's heart soared. I would really like that. Tomorrow, I know a place downtown, small, quiet, makes the best lattes in the city. Tomorrow works. She pulled out her phone. Here, put your number in. He entered his contact information, and Willow noticed his hands were shaking slightly. It made her feel better to know she was not the only nervous one. When he handed back her phone, she saw he had listed himself as Thomas D. Market Guy, and it made her smile. I will text you the address, he said. Is 10 too early? 10 is perfect. He bought the silver bracelet before leaving, and Willow spent the rest of the market day walking on air. Natalie stopped by in the afternoon and immediately knew something had happened. You are glowing. Spill everything right now. Willow told her about Margaret, about the coffee invitation, about the way Thomas had looked at her. Natalie actually squealed, causing several nearby vendors to stare. This is it, Willow. This is your romance novel moment. It is just coffee. It is never just coffee. Willow went home and spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing an outfit for the next day. She finally settled on a burgundy sweater dress and boots, casual but put together. She barely slept that night, her mind racing with possibilities and worries in equal measure. The coffee shop Thomas had chosen was indeed small and quiet, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. Willow arrived 5 minutes early and found him already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 lattes waiting. He stood when he saw her, and she noticed he had dressed casually too, jeans and a dark green Henley that brought out the warmth in his brown eyes. I took a guess on your order, he said as she sat down. Vanilla latte with an extra shot, but if I am wrong, I will get you something else. She looked at the cup and felt her chest tighten. That is exactly what I would have ordered. Lucky guess. They sat down, and for a moment the silence felt awkward. Then Thomas said, I should probably be honest with you about something. Willow's stomach clenched. Okay. I did not just stumble across your stall randomly. I saw an article about local artisans in the City magazine 3 months ago. You were featured with a photo of your jewelry and information about where you sold it. I came to the market specifically to see your work. She blinked. Really? The article talked about how you learned metalsmithing from your grandfather, how you use recycled materials when possible, how every piece tells a story. Something about it resonated with me. He wrapped his hands around his cup. I have spent the last 5 years building things that make money, but do not necessarily make people happy. Reading about someone who creates beauty just for the sake of creating it, it reminded me why I fell in love with design in the first place. Willow felt overwhelmed by the honesty in his words. Why did you not just introduce yourself that first day? Why keep coming back without saying anything? Because I did not know what to say. Thomas looked down at his latte. I know how I look. Rich CEO, expensive clothes, probably arrogant. People make assumptions. I wanted you to see me as just a customer first, someone who appreciated your work, not as Thomas Dalton, owner of Dalton Development Group. So Dalton is your last name. Yes, have you heard of my company? Willow thought about it. Maybe. I do not really follow that stuff. I know there has been a lot of construction downtown, new apartment buildings and shopping centers. Most of those are mine. He said it without pride or arrogance, just fact. We are one of the largest development companies in the state. We employ over 300 people and manage projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The numbers made Willow's head spin. That is incredible. It is also exhausting and isolating and sometimes soul-crushing, Thomas said quietly. Everyone wants something from me. Business partners want deals. Employees want promotions. Competitors want to know my strategies. Even dating is complicated because I never know if someone likes me or my bank account. Is that why you have been coming to my stall for weeks? Because I did not know who you were, partly. He met her eyes, but mostly because talking to you made me feel like a regular person again. You treated me like any other customer. You were kind and funny and passionate about your work. Being around you was the best part of my week. Willow felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back, taking a sip of her latte to compose herself. It was perfect, creamy and sweet, and exactly what she needed. I looked forward to seeing you too. Every week I would tell myself not to get excited, that you probably would not come back, but you always did. I almost kissed you last week, Thomas admitted. In the rain, before my phone rang. I wish you had. The air between them shifted, becoming charged with possibility. Thomas reached across the table and took her hand, his palm warm and slightly rough against hers. Can I take you to dinner? A real date, not just coffee. Yes. The word came out breathless. They spent 2 more hours at the coffee shop, talking about everything and nothing. Thomas told her about growing up wealthy, but feeling the pressure of expectations, about his relationship with his sisters, about the architecture projects he still designed in his rare spare time just for fun. Willow told him about learning metalsmithing in her grandfather's garage, about moving to the city 5 years ago with nothing but her tools and determination, about the joy she found in creating something from raw materials. When they finally left, Thomas walked her to her car. Dinner Friday night, I will be there. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She did not. His lips brushed against her cheek, soft and warm, and she felt the touch all the way to her toes. I will call you, he promised, and then he was walking to his own car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than she made in a year. Willow drove home in a daze. She called Natalie immediately. I think I am in serious trouble. Good trouble or bad trouble, I am falling for him, Nat. Hard and fast, and it terrifies me. Why does it terrify you? Because we are from completely different worlds. He lives in a mansion probably, goes to fancy parties, runs a massive company. I make jewelry at a market stall. What if this does not work? What if I am just a novelty to him, something different from his usual life? Or, Natalie said gently, what if he is exactly who he seems to be? A good man who is tired of his complicated life and found someone who makes him feel real. Give him a chance, Willow. Give yourself a chance. Thomas called that evening, and they talked for an hour about nothing important. He told her about his day at the office, a meeting with city planners about a new mixed-use development. She told him about the custom order she was working on, a wedding set for a couple who wanted matching bands with their initials hidden in the design. I like hearing your voice, Thomas said. It is the perfect end to my day. I like hearing yours too. They talked every night that week. Long conversations about their lives, their dreams, their fears. Willow learned that Thomas woke up at 5 every morning to work out, that he could not cook to save his life, that he had a collection of architecture books that took up an entire room in his house. Thomas learned that Willow sang while she worked, that she was afraid of spiders but loved thunderstorms, that she dreamed of one day opening her own gallery. Friday arrived, and Willow changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a simple black dress. Thomas picked her up at 7 and his eyes widened when he saw her. "You look beautiful." "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." He wore a charcoal suit without a tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. He looked effortlessly elegant, and Willow felt a flutter of nerves. He opened the car door for her, a gesture she had always thought was old-fashioned but found she appreciated. The restaurant he had chosen was upscale but not pretentious, a small Italian place with dim lighting and fresh flowers on every table. The owner greeted Thomas by name and led them to a private corner booth. "You come here often?" Willow asked as she looked at the menu. "It is one of my favorites. The owner, Marco, his family has run this place for 3 generations. When my company was expanding downtown, a lot of developers wanted to buy this building and tear it down. I made sure that did not happen." "How?" "I bought the building myself and signed a 100-year lease with Marco at a rate he can actually afford. The building is protected now, no matter who owns my company in the future." Willow felt her heart expand. "That is really wonderful, Thomas. It was the right thing to do. Not everything should be about profit margins." They ordered and talked through multiple courses. The food was incredible, but Willow barely tasted it. She was too focused on Thomas, on the way he listened to her stories with complete attention, on how his face lit up when he laughed, on the gentle way he brushed his fingers across her hand when he made a point. Over dessert, Thomas grew more serious. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Your last relationship. What happened?" Willow had known this question would come eventually. She set down her fork. "His name was Eric. We dated for 2 years. He was a financial analyst, very focused on career advancement and making money. At first, he seemed supportive of my jewelry work, but as time went on, he started making comments about how I could be making more money doing something else, about how my art was just a hobby, not a real career, about how I needed to be more ambitious." "He sounds like an idiot," Thomas said flatly. "He wanted me to be someone I was not. He wanted a girlfriend who wore designer clothes and went to networking events and fit into his version of success. When I told him I was happy doing what I was doing, he said I was wasting my potential." She met Thomas's eyes. "We broke up when he gave me an ultimatum: get a real job or he was leaving." "What did you do?" "I told him to leave. My art is not a hobby, it is who I am. If someone cannot accept that, then they do not accept me." Thomas reached across the table and took both her hands in his. "Your work is extraordinary, Willow. The passion you put into every piece, the way you light up when you talk about metalsmithing, it is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. Anyone who cannot appreciate that does not deserve you." She felt tears threatening again. "Thank you for saying that. I mean every word." He squeezed her hands gently. "I do not want to change you. I want to support you in becoming more of who you already are." After dinner, Thomas drove them to a lookout point that overlooked the city. The lights twinkled below them like fallen stars, and the night air was cool and crisp. They sat on the hood of his car, shoulders touching, and Willow felt more content than she had in years. "Can I tell you something?" Thomas asked. "When I took over my father's company, I had all these ideas about how to do things differently. I wanted to focus on sustainable building practices, on creating spaces that served communities rather than just making money. But the board pushed back, said I was too idealistic, that business was business. I compromised on a lot of my values to keep everyone happy." "Do you regret it?" "Every day. I built a successful company, but I am not sure I built the right company. He turned to look at her. Meeting you has made me think about what success really means. You chose a path that makes you happy, even though it is not the most lucrative option. That takes real courage. I do not feel particularly courageous. Most days I worry about making rent. But you are doing what you love. How many people can say that? Willow leaned her head on his shoulder. You could change things. It is your company now. It is not that simple. Maybe not. But maybe it is not as complicated as you think either. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Then Thomas shifted, turning to face her fully. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and Willow's breath caught. I am going to kiss you now, he said softly. If that is okay. That is very okay. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she did not want to. When his lips met hers, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deeper as she responded. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and she slid her hands up to tangle in his hair. He tasted like chocolate and coffee and something uniquely him. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Thomas rested his forehead against hers. I have wanted to do that for weeks. Was it worth the wait? Absolutely. He drove her home an hour later, walking her to her apartment door like a perfect gentleman. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. I have the market in the morning. I will be there. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. Willow floated into her apartment and immediately called Natalie. How was it? Natalie demanded. Perfect. He is perfect. I am in so much trouble. Willow, this is good trouble. Let yourself be happy. Willow wanted to believe that. She fell asleep with her lips still tingling from Thomas's kisses, her heart full of hope and fear in equal measure. Thomas came to her stall the next morning with coffee for both of them, and Willow found herself smiling so much her cheeks hurt. He stayed for hours, helping her with customers and making her laugh with dry observations about the people passing by. Other vendors noticed and gave her knowing looks, and Willow found she did not care. They fell into a pattern over the next few weeks. Thomas would visit the market every Saturday, then they would spend the rest of the weekend together. He showed her his favorite places in the city, the architecture he admired, the buildings he had designed. She brought him to her workshop, a shared studio space where she rented a corner, and let him watch her work. He was fascinated by the process, asking intelligent questions and occasionally helping when she needed an extra pair of hands. They went on picnics and museum visits and long walks through the city. They cooked together, which mostly meant Willow cooked while Thomas chopped vegetables and made her laugh. They talked about everything, learning each other's rhythms and quirks. Thomas had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. Willow had a tendency to get so focused on her work she forgot to eat, so Thomas started bringing her lunch. One evening, about 6 weeks after their first date, Thomas took her to his house. Willow had been curious about where he lived, but nothing prepared her for the reality. The house was a modern masterpiece, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, situated on a hill with a view of the city. But it was not ostentatious. It was thoughtfully designed, with warm wood floors and comfortable furniture and art on the walls that actually meant something. Did you design this? Willow asked as they walked through the open-plan living room. I did. It took me 3 years to build it exactly how I wanted. Every detail has a purpose. She could see him in every choice, from the massive bookshelves to the cozy window seat to the skylight that let in natural light. It is beautiful, Thomas. It feels like you. He showed her his office, where blueprints covered a massive desk and architectural models lined the shelves. These are projects I designed for fun, buildings I will probably never build, but I like imagining them anyway. Willow studied a model of a community center, all curves and green space. These are incredible. Why would you never build them? They are not profitable enough. Too much public space, not enough retail or luxury units. He said it matter-of-factly, but she heard the disappointment underneath. What if you built one anyway, just one to prove it could be done? The board would never approve it, so do not ask them. You are the majority shareholder, right? You could make it happen if you really wanted to. Thomas looked at her with something like wonder. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is. Maybe you have been making it complicated because you are afraid of pushback. But Thomas, you are building your father's vision, not your own. At some point, you have to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. How did I get so lucky to find you? You kept coming back to my jewelry stall like a persistent, mysterious weirdo, she said against his chest. He laughed, the sound rumbling through her. Best decision I ever made. They cooked dinner together, or rather Thomas grilled steaks while Willow made a salad and mocked his inability to chop an onion properly. They ate on his deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Willow felt perfectly content, like this was exactly where she was supposed to be. After dinner, Thomas grew quiet. He took her hand and led her back inside to a room she had not seen yet. When he opened the door, Willow gasped. It was a studio, fully equipped with jeweler's tools and a proper workbench. The equipment was all top of the line, from the torch to the polishing wheel to the organized drawers of supplies. On the bench sat a silver bracelet she recognized as one of the first pieces he had bought from her. "What is this?" she whispered. "I wanted you to have a proper workspace. The shared studio you rent is fine, but you deserve your own space where you can work anytime you want." He looked nervous. "I know it is a lot, and if it is too much, I understand. But I wanted you to know that I believe in your art, Willow. I believe in you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Thomas, this is too generous. I cannot accept this." "Why not?" "Because it is too much. This equipment probably costs tens of thousands of dollars. I could never repay you." "I do not want you to repay me." He wiped away her tears gently. "Willow, I care about you, more than I have cared about anyone in a very long time. Seeing you happy makes me happy. If that means building you a studio, then that is what I want to do." "I do not want you to think I am with you for your money," she said, voicing the fear that had been lurking in the back of her mind. "I do not think that, not even for a second." He cupped her face in his hands. "You have never asked me for anything. You insist on paying for your own meals half the time, even though I want to treat you. You get uncomfortable when I buy you gifts. If anything, I wish you would let me spoil you more. It is hard for me to accept help. I have always been independent, always made my own way." "I know. It is one of the things I love about you." He froze, his eyes widening. "I mean, one of the things I really like about you." Willow's heart hammered. "Did you just say love?" "I did not mean to spring that on you. We have only been dating for 6 weeks. It is too soon. I should not have." She kissed him, cutting off his rambling. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "I love you too. I have for a while now, but I was afraid to say it." Relief flooded his face. "Really, really. You are kind and thoughtful and brilliant. You listen to me and support my dreams and make me feel like I can do anything. How could I not love you?" He kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands sliding into her hair. They stood in the studio surrounded by tools and possibility, and Willow felt like her whole life was shifting into focus. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Safe and exciting, comfortable and thrilling all at once. They spent the rest of the evening exploring the studio. Thomas had thought of everything, from the ventilation system to the storage space to the natural lighting. Willow found herself planning projects in her head, ideas she had always wanted to try but never had the proper equipment for. Use this space whenever you want, Thomas said. I will give you a key. Treat it like your own. Are you sure? Absolutely. I want to support your art in any way I can. Over the next few months, their relationship deepened. Willow started spending more time at Thomas's house, using the studio for hours at a stretch while he worked in his office. They would break for meals together, talking about their respective projects, and Willow loved the easy domesticity of it all. Thomas started making changes at his company. Small ones at first, implementing more sustainable building practices and reserving a percentage of units in new developments for affordable housing. The board grumbled, but Thomas held firm. He was the CEO, and it was time he started acting like it. One Saturday at the market, a woman stopped at Willow's stall and spent a long time examining her pieces. She was middle-aged and elegantly dressed, with kind eyes and a thoughtful expression. "These are extraordinary," the woman said. "Do you do custom work?" "I do. What did you have in mind?" "I run a gallery downtown, and I am always looking for new artists to feature. I would love to showcase your jewelry in an upcoming exhibition focused on local artisans. Would you be interested?" Willow felt her heart race. "Are you serious?" "Very serious." The woman handed her a business card. "I am Patricia Moore. Call me next week and we will discuss details." After the woman left, Willow stared at the card in disbelief. Natalie, who had been eavesdropping from the next stall over, came rushing over. "Did that just happen? Please tell me that just happened." "I think I am going to be in a gallery show," Willow said faintly. She called Thomas immediately, and he whooped so loudly she had to hold the phone away from her ear. "I am so proud of you. This is incredible. I am terrified. You are going to be amazing. You know how talented you are." She spent the next month preparing for the exhibition, creating new pieces and perfecting her craft. Thomas was her biggest supporter, offering encouragement when she doubted herself and helping her select which pieces to display. The studio he had built for her proved invaluable, allowing her to work on complex projects without worrying about shared equipment or studio time. The night of the gallery opening, Willow was a bundle of nerves. She wore a deep blue dress Thomas had bought for her, simple but elegant, and had styled her hair in loose waves. Thomas picked her up early, looking devastatingly handsome in a dark suit. "You are going to be the star of the show," he said, kissing her temple. "You have to say that. You are my boyfriend. I mean it. Your work speaks for itself." The gallery was packed with people, and Willow felt overwhelmed walking in. Her jewelry was displayed in lit cases, each piece labeled with her name and a description. Seeing her work presented so beautifully, treated like real art, made emotion well up in her throat. Patricia found them immediately. "Willow, you look lovely, and you must be Thomas. I have heard a lot about you." "All good things, I hope," Thomas said with a smile. "Very good things." Patricia guided them through the exhibition, introducing Willow to other artists and potential buyers. People loved her work, asking questions about her process and requesting business cards. Several pieces sold within the first hour. Thomas stayed by her side the whole evening, proud and supportive but never overshadowing her moment. Willow caught him watching her with such love and admiration that it made her chest ache. This was her dream coming true, and he was genuinely happy for her. Near the end of the evening, an older man approached them. He was distinguished-looking with silver hair and sharp eyes, and something about him seemed familiar. Thomas stiffened beside her. "Dad," he said, "I did not know you were coming." This was Thomas's father. Willow felt a spike of nervousness. Thomas had mentioned his parents occasionally, but she had not met them yet. "Patricia is an old friend. She sent me an invitation. I had no idea my son was dating one of the featured artists." He turned to Willow and offered his hand. "Richard Dalton." "It is a pleasure to meet you," Willow Garcia. The pleasure is mine. Richard studied her jewelry with an expert eye. You are very talented. I can see why Thomas is taken with you. Dad, Thomas said, a warning in his voice. I am paying her a compliment. Richard looked between them. How long have you two been together? 4 months, Willow said. And Thomas has not brought you home to meet his mother and me yet. That is not like him. I wanted to wait for the right time, Thomas said tightly. Well, the right time is tomorrow. We are having Sunday dinner and Willow is now invited. I insist. Richard smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. Bring your sister too, Thomas. Margaret has been asking about you. He walked away before they could respond, leaving Willow feeling unsettled. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. I am sorry about that. He has a way of taking over situations. It is okay. I should meet your parents eventually. You do not understand. My father is difficult. He will grill you with questions and make judgments and probably say something inappropriate. I have been putting off introducing you because I wanted to protect you from that. Willow squeezed his hand. I can handle difficult parents, and I want to meet them, Thomas. They are part of your life. Sunday dinner at the Dalton estate was intimidating. The house was a sprawling colonial, all white columns and manicured lawns, situated in an exclusive neighborhood Willow had only seen in magazines. Thomas held her hand tightly as they walked to the door, and she could feel his tension. His mother, Catherine, greeted them warmly. She was elegant and kind-eyed with the same dark hair as her son streaked with silver. You must be Willow. I have heard wonderful things about you. Come in, come in. Margaret was already there with her fiancé, a nice guy named David who worked as a pediatrician. Sarah, the younger sister, arrived with her fiancé shortly after. Everyone was welcoming and genuinely interested in getting to know Willow, which helped her relax slightly. Then Richard entered the dining room and the atmosphere shifted. Dinner was a formal affair with multiple courses. Richard dominated the conversation, asking Willow pointed questions about her family, her education, her business plans. Thomas grew increasingly tense beside her, his jaw tight. So your father was a mechanic and your mother was a school teacher, Richard said. Honest work, certainly, and you learned jewelry making from your grandfather. Yes, he was a master metalsmith. He taught me everything I know. And now you sell at a weekend market. That must be challenging financially. Dad, Thomas said sharply, I am just making conversation. Richard took a sip of his wine. I am curious about how serious artists support themselves. I do fine, Willow said, keeping her voice even. Between the market, online sales, and custom commissions, I make a living doing what I love. That is more than a lot of people can say. Indeed, Thomas tells me you are quite talented, though I have to wonder about the long-term viability of artisan jewelry in today's market. Mass production and online retailers have made handmade goods somewhat obsolete. If you will excuse me, Dad is wrong about that, Thomas interjected. People are increasingly seeking out unique, handmade items. They want to support local artists and own pieces with meaning. Willow's business is thriving because she offers something generic stores cannot match. Richard raised an eyebrow. You have certainly become passionate about the jewelry business. I am passionate about Willow. Her success is my success. The rest of dinner was tense despite Catherine's attempts to steer the conversation to safer topics. After dessert, Richard asked to speak with Thomas privately in his study. Thomas looked like he wanted to refuse, but Willow touched his arm gently. Go ahead. I will be fine. He kissed her forehead and followed his father out. Margaret immediately slid into the chair beside Willow. Do not take anything Dad says personally. He has always been protective of Thomas, especially after what happened with Valerie. Who is Valerie? Margaret looked surprised. Thomas has not told you. She was his last serious girlfriend about 3 years ago. She was a corporate lawyer, very ambitious, very focused on climbing the social ladder. She and Dad got along great, which should have been Thomas's first warning sign. Turns out she was more interested in the Dalton name and money than in Thomas himself. She cheated on him with one of his business rivals, then tried to play it off like Thomas was not attentive enough. Willow felt anger flare on Thomas's behalf. That is awful. It was. Thomas was devastated. He threw himself into work and has not really dated anyone seriously since. Until you, Margaret smiled. I have never seen my brother as happy as he has been these past few months. Dad is just worried that Thomas is rushing into things because he is afraid to be alone. I would never hurt him like that. I know. Anyone with eyes can see how much you care about him, but Dad needs to figure that out for himself. In Richard's study, the conversation was not going well. Thomas stood with his arms crossed, glaring at his father. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? Thomas demanded. I am trying to make sure you are not making a mistake, Richard said calmly. This girl, Willow, she is sweet, I am sure, but she comes from a completely different world. Do you really think this relationship has long-term potential? Her name is Willow, and yes, I think this relationship has serious long-term potential. I love her, Dad. You love her, or you love the idea of her. She is different from your usual type, I grant you that, but relationships require more than just attraction and novelty. They require compatibility, shared goals, similar backgrounds. Willow and I are compatible. We have plenty of shared goals. Like what? She makes jewelry, you run a development company. She lives in a modest apartment, you own a house worth millions. She shops at thrift stores, you wear custom suits. These are not small differences, Thomas. None of those things matter, Thomas said firmly. What matters is that she makes me want to be a better person. She challenges me to think differently about my work and my life. She supports my dreams and I support hers. That is what a real partnership looks like, Richard sighed. I just do not want to see you get hurt again. Then trust me to make my own decisions. I am not a kid anymore, Dad. I am 31 years old and I know what I want. Willow is what I want. When Thomas returned to the dining room, he looked drained. Willow stood immediately, making their excuses. Catherine hugged her warmly at the door and whispered, Do not mind Richard. He will come around once he sees how happy you make Thomas. In the car, Thomas was silent. Willow took his hand. Do you want to talk about it? He thinks we are too different, that our relationship will not last. What do you think? Thomas pulled over on a quiet street and turned to face her. I think I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I know it is fast. I know we have only been together for a few months, but I am more sure of this than I have been of anything. You are it for me, Willow. Her heart felt like it might burst. You are it for me too. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and when they broke apart they were both breathing hard. I am going to prove my father wrong. I am going to show him that what we have is real. Over the next several months, Thomas did exactly that. He brought Willow to every family gathering, every company event, every opportunity to show that she was a permanent part of his life. Slowly, Richard began to soften. He saw how Thomas glowed around Willow, how she supported him without trying to change him, how genuinely she cared about his happiness. Catherine warmed to Willow quickly, often inviting her to lunch or shopping trips. Margaret and Sarah treated her like another sister. Even Richard eventually admitted that Willow was good for Thomas, though he did so grudgingly. Willow's career continued to flourish. The gallery show led to more commissions and online orders. She was able to quit her part-time job at a coffee shop and focus on her jewelry full-time. Thomas celebrated every success with her, proud and supportive at every turn. 1 year after they met, Thomas asked Willow to come to his office. She had been there a few times before, a sleek modern building downtown with Dalton Development Group emblazoned on the entrance. His assistant smiled at her and waved her through to his office on the top floor. Thomas stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city. Blueprints covered his desk, and there was an excited energy about him she had not seen in a while. "What is going on?" Willow asked. He turned, his face lit up with barely contained joy. "Remember that community center design I showed you? The one I said would never get built, of course. I pitched it to the board. Well, I did not exactly pitch it so much as announce we were doing it. I am using my own money to fund the project, so they could not really argue. We break ground next month." Willow threw her arms around him. "Thomas, that is incredible. I am so proud of you. You inspired me to do it. All those conversations we had about legacy and building things that matter, they stuck with me. I realized I was living my father's dreams instead of my own. It is time I changed that. This is going to be amazing. I want you to design something for it. A sculpture or installation, something that represents community and connection. Whatever you want to create, I will make sure it has a prominent place." Willow felt tears in her eyes. "You trust me with something that important. I trust you with everything." They spent the afternoon going over plans, Thomas explaining his vision while Willow took notes and sketched ideas. The community center would have spaces for after-school programs, art classes, sports, job training. It would serve the neighborhood in meaningful ways, not just take up space. As the sun set, painting the office in golden light, Thomas grew quiet. He took Willow's hands and pulled her to her feet. "There is something else I wanted to talk to you about." "Okay." He took a deep breath, and Willow saw that his hands were shaking. "I love you, Willow Garcia. You have changed my entire life in the best possible way. You made me remember what matters, what I want to build, who I want to be. Every day with you is better than the last, and I cannot imagine my future without you in it." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Willow's breath caught. "I had this made specially for you, designed by an artist you inspired me to support." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a moonstone wrapped in delicate gold wire in a style that perfectly matched Willow's own aesthetic. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Willow said through her tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he stood and kissed her, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. The city lights twinkled outside the windows, and Willow felt like the luckiest person in the world. They got married 8 months later in a ceremony that perfectly blended their two worlds. The wedding was held at Thomas's house, with the ceremony in the garden and the reception spilling through the beautiful spaces he had designed. Willow wore a simple ivory dress and a crown of flowers she had made herself. Thomas cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. Their vows were personal and heartfelt. Thomas promised to always support Willow's dreams, to challenge her to grow, to love her through every season of life. Willow promised to be his partner in all things, to remind him what matters when he gets lost in work, to build a life full of beauty and meaning together. Richard gave a speech at the reception that actually made Thomas tear up. He admitted he had been wrong about Willow, that she was exactly the partner Thomas needed, that he had never seen his son happier. Catherine just smiled knowingly, like she had known all along how things would turn out. For their honeymoon, they went to Italy, spending 2 weeks exploring ancient cities and eating incredible food. Thomas took Willow to architectural marvels he had always wanted to see, and she dragged him to artisan markets where she bought supplies and ideas. They made love in beautiful hotels and talked about their future, about the life they wanted to build together. When they returned home, they settled into married life with ease. Willow split her time between her market stall, which she refused to give up, and the studio Thomas had built for her. She worked on the installation for the community center, a massive piece incorporating copper and silver and glass that represented hands reaching out to each other, connection and support made visible. Thomas continued making changes at his company, shifting focus towards sustainable development and community-oriented projects. It was not always popular with the board, but the company prospered. More importantly, Thomas felt proud of the work they were doing. A year into their marriage, Willow discovered she was pregnant. She told Thomas over breakfast, handing him a tiny pair of silver baby shoes she had made. He stared at them in confusion for a moment before understanding dawned. Then he was on his feet, lifting her up and spinning her around, both of them laughing. "We are having a baby," he kept saying, like he could not quite believe it. "We are having a baby," Willow confirmed. Their daughter was born on a rainy spring morning, and they named her Rose Catherine, after her grandmother's. She had Thomas's dark eyes and Willow's stubborn chin, and from the moment Thomas held her, he was completely smitten. Willow watched him with Rose, seeing a gentleness she had always known was there but that he had kept hidden for so long. He was an incredible father, patient and loving, changing diapers at 3 in the morning and singing lullabies off-key. He rearranged his schedule to be home for bedtime and never missed a pediatrician appointment. The community center opened when Rose was 6 months old. The entire family attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, including Richard and Catherine, who spent most of the event passing their granddaughter back and forth. Thomas gave a speech about building things that last, about creating spaces that serve rather than just occupy. Willow's installation hung in the main atrium, catching the light and casting beautiful shadows. "Your grandfather would be proud of you," Thomas whispered to Willow during the ceremony. "I think he would be proud of both of us," she replied. When Rose was 2, they had a son, James Richard, who had his father's serious expression and his mother's creativity. Thomas coached both kids in Little League and built them an elaborate treehouse. Willow taught them metalworking basics in her studio, Rose surprisingly patient with delicate work, while James preferred hammering things. Willow's jewelry business continued to thrive. She opened her own small gallery downtown, in a building Thomas had renovated specifically for her. She still did the weekend market, though, because it reminded her where she started and because she liked the community there. Thomas often joined her on Saturdays, helping set up and chatting with customers who had watched their relationship unfold over the years. "Do you remember the first time I came to your stall?" Thomas asked one Saturday morning, watching Willow arrange her newest pieces. "Of course. You stood there looking intense and mysterious, and I thought you were going to rob me or something," he laughed. "I was terrified. I had no idea how to talk to you. All I knew was that I was drawn to you and your work in a way I could not explain. You came back, though. Every week, never saying much, but always returning." She smiled at him. "Best decision you ever made." "Second best," he corrected. "The best was asking you to marry me." They kissed across her display of jewelry, and a few nearby vendors cheered. Even after years together, the love between them was obvious and beautiful. Thomas continued to build his legacy, not through massive profitable developments, but through projects that improved communities and served people. He designed affordable housing that did not look institutional, community spaces that brought people together, sustainable buildings that respected the environment. He won awards and recognition, but more importantly, he went to bed each night proud of his work. Willow created art that brought beauty into the world, training apprentices and teaching classes at the community center. Her pieces were sold in galleries across the state, but she never forgot her roots, never stopped doing the weekend market, never lost the joy she found in transforming raw materials into something precious. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the market where they had met. Thomas had arranged for friends to watch the kids overnight, and they spent the day just the two of them, walking through the stalls and eating food truck tacos like they had when they were first dating. 10 years, Willow marveled. It went so fast. Best 10 years of my life, Thomas said. Though I am looking forward to the next 10 even more, and the 10 after that. Just 10 more. I was thinking at least 50. He pulled her close, right there in the middle of the market where their story began. 50 sounds perfect. They kissed as the autumn sun warmed their faces, surrounded by the bustle of the market, vendors calling out their wares and customers haggling prices. It was the same market where a wealthy, lonely CEO had stopped at a jewelry stall years ago, drawn by beautiful handmade pieces and the talented woman who created them. Where he had returned week after week, not knowing what to say but unable to stay away. Where he had found not just beautiful jewelry, but a beautiful life. Thomas had been searching for something he could not name when he first saw Willow's stall. He had been successful by every measure that mattered to most people, but he had been empty inside, going through motions, living someone else's vision. She had reminded him what really mattered, what was worth building, what made life meaningful. And Willow had found her partner, someone who supported her dreams without trying to change her, who celebrated her successes and helped her through failures, who loved her completely for exactly who she was. Together they had built a life full of beauty and purpose, raised children they adored, created things that would outlast them. As they walked hand in hand through the market that afternoon, Willow squeezed Thomas's hand. "Thank you for coming back every week, for being persistent, for giving us a chance. Thank you for seeing past the expensive clothes and the intimidating silence, for talking to me like I was just another customer, for making me fall in love with life again." They stopped at Willow's old spot, now occupied by a young potter selling beautiful handmade bowls. The woman smiled at them, and Willow bought 2 bowls, remembering when she had been the one trying to make a living from her art. That evening, Thomas took Willow to the restaurant where they had their first date. Marco greeted them like family because they were practically family after a decade of regular visits. They sat in the same corner booth, ordered the same meal, and talked about everything and nothing just like they had on that first date. "You ever think about how different our lives would be if I had not seen that magazine article?" Thomas asked over dessert. "If I had never come to your stall?" "Sometimes, but I think we would have found each other somehow. Some things are just meant to be." "You really believe that?" "I do. We were both searching for something, even if we did not know what it was. The universe has a way of bringing together people who need each other." Thomas reached across the table and took her hand, running his thumb over her wedding ring. He had designed it himself, a complement to her engagement ring, both pieces incorporating elements of her own aesthetic. "I needed you more than I knew. We needed each other." They went home that night to their beautiful house on the hill, where their children slept peacefully and their life together waited. They made love slowly, tenderly, celebrating a decade of marriage and partnership. Afterward, they lay tangled together, talking about their plans and dreams, about the kids' futures, about the next project they wanted to tackle together. "I love you," Thomas said, the same words he had spoken thousands of times, but that never lost their power. "I love you too," Willow replied, meaning it more with each passing year. The moonlight filtered through the skylights Thomas had designed, casting silver patterns across their bed. Somewhere in the house, one of the kids called out in their sleep, and Thomas got up to check on them, returning with a smile to report that James had just been dreaming. They settled back into each other's arms, comfortable and content. This was their happily ever after, built slowly over years of love and work and compromise. It was not perfect because life never was. They had disagreements and stressful days and moments of doubt, but they faced everything together, partners in the truest sense. Thomas still went to the market with Willow most Saturdays, and people still told the story of the mysterious man who had visited her jewelry stall every weekend for months, never saying much but always returning, until finally he had found the courage to ask her out. It had become market legend, the kind of love story people pointed to as proof that good things happen to good people. And in the end, that was exactly what it was. A love story that started with a lonely millionaire and a talented artist who found in each other exactly what they had been missing. Thomas had been searching for meaning and purpose, for someone who saw him as a person rather than a bank account. Willow had been searching for a partner who would support her dreams without trying to change them, who would love her completely for who she was. They had found all that and more in each other. They had built a life full of beauty and meaning, raised children who knew they were loved, created things that made the world a little better. Their love had grown and deepened over the years, becoming the foundation on which everything else rested. As they drifted off to sleep that night, wrapped in each other's arms after a perfect anniversary celebration, both Thomas and Willow felt grateful for that first meeting at the market, for his decision to keep returning even when he did not know what to say, for her kindness in treating him like any other customer, for the courage they had both found to take a chance on love. Their story had started simply, with handmade jewelry and a scarred wooden table and a man who could not stay away. But it had grown into something beautiful and lasting, a testament to the power of patience and connection, and choosing love every single day. The moonlight continued to paint silver patterns across their bedroom as the city lights twinkled below. Somewhere in the house, their children dreamed safe dreams. And Thomas and Willow slept peacefully, knowing they had found in each other the greatest treasure of all. A love worth building a lifetime around, a partnership that made them both better, a happiness that started at a jewelry stall and would last forever.